everyone, welcome to another digital build. This week we're going to be talking about processing. So processing is an open source IDE made for electronic artists, new media artists, and creatives like that. It's really meant for people who don't really have like a coding background. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys how to import some libraries and use the example projects in the libraries to quickly create some cool projects. So the first thing you're going to want to do is come up here to Sketch and then go to Import Library, Add Libraries. And here you can see all the different kinds of libraries that you can import. I'm going to use Sound from the Processing Foundation. This one's pretty self-explanatory. And then also Video, which also includes things like webcam captures. I already have them installed, but you can hit Install on the bottom and just wait for it to process. Before we get into the libraries, let's just talk a little bit about the anatomy of the processing. Here is your sketch. In this white box, you can enter your code. Here's the run button and the stop button for testing out your project. Here is the console, so if you had any lines of code in there to print out like a statement just to test if a part of your code was working, that would show up here. And also on the bottom, there's also errors. Now we can get started. You can go to File, Examples, and here it'll pop up all of these different libraries that we have. You can see my sound and my video, and when you click into them, you can see the example projects. So this one is the bandpass filter. You can drag that in and it tells you what it does on the top, so that makes it really easy that you don't really have to understand the code. And this is what it does. So you can see that it's really visualizing that filter with the white noise. Okay, so let's just briefly talk a little bit about the structure of this code. On the top here, I'm importing the sound library. Otherwise, the specific functions that go with the sound library won't work. Here I have global variables, which are variables that can be used across the whole project versus variables that are created within the functions that only work within the functions. Here where it says void setup is our very first function, the setup function. Everything inside the brackets is just like a set of instructions that run whenever setup is called. So the start function is called every time the project starts up. So this is doing all the setup work. So size is the window size. Here are it's establishing those new files for the sound. This next one is start draw. So every time it updates, it will do whatever's in this code. So if you were a sound person, you might understand this a little bit better. But here it's playing the sound and it's using the filter. Now let's try another one. This one's kind of cool. It jumbles a particular sound file. So you can see all that setup in here too. And then it tells you that it's going to take a sound file and every time it mouse clicks, it will swap 1 second portions of that sound file. So it'll get more and more jumbled. And you can see that in the mouse pressed. So it tells you what the code does. So really, if I wanted to use this, I can just copy and paste this into my next project. Here, I'm going to play this just so you can hear what it sounds like. With every click, it just gets more and more jumbled. Okay, now let's look at some video examples. There's some really cool ones in here. It has one to show you how to basically set one up. There's like brightness tracking, and here this one's really cool. It's time displacement. It's better shown than read. So every time I move, it shows me my last position and it'll just keep scrolling like that. It's pretty cool. one that's a little bit more useful is frame differencing, and what it does is by calculating the difference of pixels, it can track the amount of movement is in a picture or a video. And so here's all the math involved doing that. It takes like the values of each pixel, subtracts them from each other, and ends up with like a movement sum. And it will actually print out that sum on the bottom in the console. So you can see when I try this out that it takes my video, it shows me the new frames, and then it tells me how much that movement sum is on the bottom. So I am going to want to combine the jumble sound file and the frame differencing file into one project so that whenever it detects a certain amount of movement, it will start jumbling that sound file. So basically what I want to do is just copy and paste parts of the frame differencing into the other file. So I just need that import video so my functions are working properly, such as this one. And anytime in processing, if you don't know what a file does, you can just right click, just select the function part, and then hit right click and find in reference, and then it will pull up a browser for you and give you the documentation for that function. Okay, and then I'm going to copy over the variables so that they can be used properly. And then in here, you can see this one says background 255. You can see when we played it, it had a white background, which is just what it is. But instead, I'm going to copy over that video capture setup from this frame differencing one and place it over here. And then on the bottom, I'm just going to keep that file setup for the sounds. So now I'm going to copy all of this frame differencing stuff into the draw function of the other file. And then I'm going to take all of this outside of the mass pressed because instead of mass pressing, I want the frame differencing to activate the jumbling. So I'm going to put it inside this if statement. So it says here, if there is movement, like so if the sum is above 0, then it'll print. And then I also want it to execute the jumbling algorithm. But I also want to make this number higher because you could see in my other one that I was moving an average of 3 million different pixels. So I'm going to raise that so it doesn't keep jumbling constantly. And then I'm just going to copy and paste everything into here. And then I'm going to delete the mouse pressed so that it doesn't have extra jumbling. And then I'm going to play it to see how it goes. And it's going a little crazy. Here, I'm just going to tweak this number so that it needs to reach a higher threshold before jumbling. This is how it goes. So now I'm going to just save my project by going to File, Save As, so that I'm not saving over the library example. Put it where I want it, and then give it a new name. That's a little meaningful. And there you go, your very first processing project.